Gravel crunched under the tires as I pulled up to the ranch gate. The sound cut through the quiet, sharp like a first breath after holding it too long. Dust hung in the air, thick like unspoken words, settling on the windshield in a haze that blurred the horizon. I wiped it away with my sleeve, tasting the grit on my lips. I needed this work. The city had grown too loud, its noise pressing in until I couldn't think straight. Out here, the land stretched wide, promising silence if I earned it. The foreman waited by the fence, his hat tipped back, face lined from years under this sun. He nodded once, no words wasted. "You're here for Cora's shift," he said, voice gravelly. She was injured, bucked off a horse, arm broken bad. I nodded back, stepping out into the heat that wrapped around me like an old coat. He handed me her worn gloves, still warm from her last grip. The leather smelled of sweat and earth, raw and alive. It pulled me in before I even started. A scent that lingered like a question I wasn't ready to answer. I stepped into the barn as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the wooden beams. The air inside was cooler, heavy with the scent of hay and horse. Tools lined the walls, hammers, ropes, branding irons, each one marked by careful hands. Notches on the handles, faint oil stains from precise work. These weren't just tools. They carried the shape of someone else's days, someone who knew this place inside out. The foreman followed me in, his boots thudding soft on the packed dirt floor. He explained the routine, his voice rough like the land itself, words clipped and direct. Start with the stalls at dawn, muck out the waste, lay fresh bedding. Check the fences after, ride the lines for breaks. Water the stock, feed at dusk. Cora's way, he said, pointing to a peg where her hat hung, brim curled from wear. She don't cut corners. You follow it, the work follows you. I listened, nodding, but my eyes kept drifting to those marks on the tools. Her hands had held them, shaped them. The weight of her absence hit then. Not just labor to fill, but a shadow to step into. Like wearing someone else's skin, close, but not quite fitting. I pulled on the gloves outside the barn door, flexing my fingers against the stiff leather. They were too big at first, but as I walked the yard, checking the corral, they settled. The ranch sprawled out, fences snaking over hills dotted with scrub, horses grazing lazy in the fading light. No city hum here, just wind through the grass and the distant low of cattle. It felt empty, but not lonely yet. More like waiting. I wondered about Cora. What kind of woman trusted this land enough to mark it with her touch? The foreman had said little, just that she'd been here 5 years, knew the rhythms better than most. Injured now, laid up in town. Her shift mine until she healed. As the sun slipped behind the ridge, I hauled a bucket from the well, water sloshing cold against my legs. The pump creaked, echoing in the quiet. I thought of the city again, its endless rush, how I'd left without looking back. This was escape, sure, but already it pulled deeper. The gloves warmed to my skin, carrying that faint sweat earth smell. It wasn't just work. It was stepping into her space, feeling the echo of her in every task. Night fell slow, stars pricking the sky one by one. I sat on the porch steps, plate of beans and cornbread from the foreman's wife balanced on my knee. The isolation settled then, wrapping around the quiet ache inside. Out here, alone with the dark, thoughts turned inward. What was I running from, really? The city jobs that chewed you up, or something quieter, like the way I'd never quite fit anywhere. Cora's shadow lingered in my mind. Not a person yet, but a presence. Her gloves on the table beside me, her tools waiting. The ranch breezed around me, alive in the wind. I finished eating, the flavors simple, grounding. Tomorrow would start before light. But tonight, the ache mirrored the land's vastness. Empty. Waiting to be filled. I stood, stretching sore muscles from the drive, and walked back to the bunkhouse. The door creaked open to a narrow bed, quilt worn thin. I lay down, the springs groaning under me. Sleep came uneven, broken by dreams of hands on reins, of dust and dawn. Cora's hands, maybe. Or mine, learning to be hers. The isolation pressed, but it wasn't unwelcome. It mirrored that quiet ache, the one I'd carried too long. Out here, it had room to breathe. Dawn came without warning, I woke before light, the bunkhouse cold and still. My body stirred on its own, clock set by the ranch's pull. I swung my legs over the edge, boots hitting the floor with a thud that echoed in my chest. Outside, the air a bit sharp, frost clinging to the grass like a thin skin. I filled the pot from the pump, water icy on my hands, and set it to boil over the small stove. Coffee brewed black, bitter on my tongue when I sipped it from a chipped mug. It burned going down, waking me fully. No sugar out here. Just the raw edge to start the day. I grabbed the pitchfork from the barn wall, its handle smooth under my grip. The stalls waited, horses shifting restless in the dim. Steam rose from their backs as I pushed open the gate. Manure piled deep, the smell thick and earthy. I drove the fork in, heaving loads onto the wheelbarrow. Muscles burned against the chill, shoulders nodding with each lift. Sweat built slow under my shirt, mixing with the cold that seeped through my jacket. The work demanded everything. Arms straining, back arching, legs planted firm in the muck. No room for thought at first, just motion, breath fogging the air. Hay bales stacked in the loft, rough and heavy. I climbed the ladder, splinters pricking my palms, and tossed them down one by one. Each bale scratched skin through my sleeves, a rough drag like sandpaper on raw nerves. I thought of bodies close and shared work then, how two people might move here, side by side, passing tools without words. The rhythm of it, sweat mingling in the heat of the day. Cora had done this alone, or with others, her hands guiding the same fork, the same bales. The idea stuck, warming me more than the coffee. I spread the bedding fresh, horses nosing in, their breath warm on my arm. They trusted the routine. I had to earn it. Midway through, something caught my eye on a shelf by the feed bin. A notebook, leather-bound, edges frayed. I wiped my hands on my jeans and picked it up, pages opening to sketches in pencil. Fences drawn precise, lines straight where the real ones sagged. Horse trails mapped out, curves following ridges I hadn't ridden yet. Notes scrawled in tight script. Weak spots in the wire, times for watering the north pasture. Cora's hand, no doubt, no doubt. Steady, no flourish. I traced a sketch of the barn from outside, the way she'd captured the lean of the roof. It wasn't art, it was the land, seen clear. I set it down, careful, but the images lingered. My body moved on instinct now, forking the last of the muck, wheeling it out to the pile. Muscles eased into the burn, finding a pace. But my mind wandered to the woman behind the notes. What drove her to map it all? Nights like this, before light, sketching by lantern. A riding back sore, jotting what needed fixing. She knew this place, deep, made it hers. I envied that. The way the ranch fit her like those gloves. My hands in them now, calluses building slow. Was she healing fast? Itching to return? The thought twisted, not just curiosity. Something sharper. Like wanting to see her mark the page again. The sun cracked the horizon as I finished, gold light spilling into the stalls. Horses munched content, tails swishing. I leaned on the fork, breath steadying, the chill burned off by effort. The notebook called me back. I flipped through more. Diagrams of tack repairs, a list of foaling dates. One page had a rough drawing of a horse's leg, wrapped like for injury. Her own, maybe? The care in the lines pulled at me. This wasn't just work for her. It was the pulse of the place. I closed it, tucking it back, and stepped out into the yard. The air warmed slight, birds calling sharp. My body ached good, grounded. But the wandering stayed, circling her. What did she look like, moving through this dawn? Tall, maybe. Hands, sure. The question hung, mixing with the sweat on my skin. Mid-morning brought wind, dust kicking up from the drive. A rider approached on a bay mare, hat low against the sun. He pulled up at the corral, dismounting with a nod. "News from town," he said, voice carrying over the breeze. "Cora's recovering steady. Doc says another week, maybe 2. Relief hit, mixed with that twist again. She'd be back soon. Her shift ending. Mine too. I watched the rider go, his horse kicking up more dust as he headed back toward town. Another week, maybe 2. The words settled heavy, like the weight of the pitchfork earlier. Cora would return, claim her space. I'd pack up, drive back to whatever waited in the city. But the ranch pulled now, its routines digging in. I shook it off and grabbed the tools from the barn. Wire cutters, pliers, a coil of barbed fence. The broken gate weighted down the south line, sagging where a post had cracked. The walk there took me over uneven ground, boots sinking into soft earth. Wind picked up, carrying scents of sage from the brush, sharp and wild. It stirred something, memories not my own. Riding endless trails, hands raw from rains. I pushed the thought away. Focus on the work. The gate leaned bad, wire loose and tangled. I dropped to one knee, cutters snipping through the barbs. They bit clean, metal cold against my palms. I pried the post straight, hammering it firm with the mallet. Sweat beaded on my forehead, trickling down despite the breeze. As I twisted new wire tight, my fingers brushed the wood. There, carved faint into the post, Cora's initials. C.M. Not deep, just enough to last. A small mark, deliberate. I traced them, slow. The grooves rough under my calluses. Who carves her name here? In a spot no one would see unless fixing the same break. It felt private, like a claim on the land. Not showy, just hers. The sage scent thickened, wind whipping it around me. I straightened, wiping dirt from my hands, but the initials stayed under my skin. The fence held now, taut and straight. I tested it, leaning weight against the wire. It gave nothing. Satisfaction hit, simple and solid. But questions built as I gathered the tools. Who leaves such marks on a place, on a life? Cora had poured herself into this ranch. Tools notched, posts carved, notebook full of lines. Not for praise, for the doing. I envied that quiet hold. My own life felt scattered, jobs blurring one into the next. Here, her traces everywhere, like she'd shaped the dirt itself. I slung the coil over my shoulder and headed back, sun climbing higher. The path wound past a dry creek bed, sage brushing my legs. Memories flickered again. Not mine, but borrowed. Her hands on this gate, maybe after a long ride, carving quick with a pocket knife. Why? To remember she'd fixed it, or just to touch the wood? The wind carried more sage, mixing with earth and my sweat. It pulled at me, stirring a restlessness I couldn't name. Lunch break came mid-stride. I stopped at the corral, saddlebag slung from a rail. Inside, a strip of jerky, tough and salted. Left over from her, the foreman had said. I tore a piece off, chewing slow. The flavor burst, smoke and spice clinging to my teeth. It tasted of trails, of days out under this sky. Eating alone, I sat on an upturned bucket, wind tugging at my hat. The ranch stretched quiet, horses dozing in shade. No one around, just me and her traces. Questions piled higher with each bite. What kind of woman lives like this? Strong, sure. Hands that mend and mark without second thought. I'd never met her, but felt her in the jerky's chew, in the fence's pull. Desire flickered then, small as a spark in dry grass. Not loud. Just a warmth low in my chest, wondering about her eyes, her voice over the wind. I swallowed hard, tearing another piece. This was her life I tasted. Temporary for me. But the spark caught, faint smoke rising. I finished the jerky, folding the bag careful. The bucket creaked as I stood, muscles tight from the morning. Back to work. Check the water troughs, scrub them clean. But the questions lingered, mixing with the sage on the breeze. Who was she? Really, the one who left pieces of herself scattered. The spark grew a touch, not flame yet, just enough to notice. I walked on, boots steady in the dust. Afternoon chores blurred, hauling buckets, rushing down a colt that shied at my touch. Her touch, probably gentler. The jerky sat heavy, her flavor lingering. I caught myself scanning the horizon, half expecting a truck. Foolish. She was healing. But the desire hummed quiet, fighting the pull to imagine more. The initials on the post, the notebook's lines, they weren't just marks. They were her. By the time I reached the north pasture, sweat soaked my shirt. The wind died slight, leaving the air still. I mended a small tear in the netting, fingers quick now, learning her way. The spark flickered again, brighter in the quiet. Who leaves such marks? Someone who belongs. The thought twisted, desire sharpening against the work's ache. Not mine to claim, but hard to shake. The afternoon heat pressed down as I led the gelding from the corral, his coat warm under my hand. He was a steady bay, muscles shifting easy when I swung into the saddle. No fancy tack, just a worn blanket and her saddle, Cora's, left hanging on the rack. I spotted it earlier, leather smooth from years of grip, the cantle curved like it remembered her weight. I cinched it tight, the straps pulling familiar, though my hands fumbled the buckle once. It fit the horse well, molded to his barrel. Mounting up, I felt the seat settle against me, her rhythm in the give of the leather. We headed out along the fence line, hooves thudding soft on the packed earth. The horse moved sure, ears flicking at the wind, carrying me over rises dotted with sage and rock. I scanned the wire as we rode, eyes sharp for sags or breaks. The land rolled wide, hills folding into each other under a sky turning brass. My body rocked with his gait, thighs gripping, reins loose in my fists. It was Cora's rhythm, this way. Steady, unhurried, like she'd worn a path in the dirt herself. The saddle cradled me, warm from the sun, and I caught the faint scent of oil and sweat baked in. Her sweat. The thought pulled low in my gut, a tug I tried to ignore. We crested a rise, the fence stretching like a scar across the plain. A post leaned slight, wire humming taut when I tapped it. I dismounted, boots crunching gravel, and drove a stake to brace it. The mallet thudded heavy, each swing jarring my arms. Sweat trickled down my back, shirt sticking. The horse grazed nearby, tail swishing flies. Remounting, I urged him on, the saddle shifting under me again. Smooth, worn. Years of her grip had shaped it, thighs like mine now pressing the fenders. The internal pull grew then, quiet but insistent, work blending with thoughts of her return. She'd ride this line soon, hands on these reins, body in this seat. Would she notice the fixes? The way I'd followed her notes? The sun dipped lower, shadows lengthening across the wire. We turned north, toward the far pasture where cattle bunched under cottonwoods. I checked the gate there, latch rusty but holding. The animals lowed soft, eyes on me as I rode past. Their bulk reminded me of the labor, branding, herding, the endless mend. Cora knew it deep, her sketches mapping the flow. My mind wandered to her healing, arm mending in some town bed. Did she ache for this ride? The pull sharpened, desire threading through the rhythm, not just to meet her, to share this sway, her steady under the same sky. Back toward the barn as light faded, the horse's pace slowed, tired, like me. I stroked his neck, feeling the heat there. The saddle clung now, damp with our sweat. Her grip had worn it smooth, strong hands, calloused from wire and rain. I imagined them, guiding this bay, body arched against a trot. The thought heated my skin more than the sun. I shook it off, focusing on the fence's hum. But the blend stuck, work and her, inseparable now. The ranch demanded it, pulling me into her shape. Evening chores waited as we neared the yard. I unsaddled in the barn, the leather creaking as I lifted it down. Hung it back, fingers lingering on the smooth cantle. Stars pricked the sky early, faint against the dusk. I hauled water from the well next, bucket heavy on the rope. The pump groaned, water gushing cold and clear. I carried it to the troughs, sloshing over the rim, soaking my boots. Back and forth, arms burning from the weight. Stars emerged full now, sharp points in the deepening blue. The land cooled quick, air crisp with night. My body ached deep, muscles knotted from the ride, the swings, the hauls. Thighs sore from the grip, back tight from leaning. But the land felt alive around me, whispering of belonging. Wind sighed through the grass, carrying sage and damp earth. Horses nickered in the stalls, settling. I paused by the trough, water rippling under the stars. This rhythm, Cora's, fit me now, like the saddle had. The pull grew stronger, thoughts of her return mixing with the ache. Not fear, want. To see her move through this dusk, hands sure. I finished the last bucket, setting it down with a clang. The stars wheeled overhead, vast and quiet. The ranch breathed, pulling me in deeper. Her rhythm, my body learning it. The desire hummed, blending with the night's hush. Belonging, maybe, to this place, to her shadow. A truck rumbled in at dusk, headlights cutting the dark, bringing Cora home early. The truck's engine cut off abrupt, gravel settling under the tires. I stood by the water trough, bucket still in hand, water dripping cold down my wrist. Headlights faded, leaving the yard in that thick dusk where shapes blurred at the edges. The door creaked open and she stepped out. Cora. Bandaged arm slung low in a sling, white gauze stark against her dark shirt. Her other hand gripped the doorframe, steadying as she swung her good leg down. She moved careful, but not fragile. Boots hitting the ground firm, dust puffing around her heels. Eyes sharp like the horizon, scanning the yard quick, taking it in, me included. I set the bucket down slow, the clang echoing too loud in the quiet. She turned then, gaze landing on me full. Not soft. Assessing. Wind tugged at her hat, brim shading her face, but I caught the line of her jaw, the way her lips pressed thin. Limp echoed across the yard as she walked, boot dragging slight on the left, from the injury or something older. Each step measured, like the land had taught her not to rush. I watched from the porch steps, hands loose at my sides, feeling caught. Her presence hit like the heat earlier, sudden, wrapping close. Not just a woman returning, the owner of the gloves, the saddle, the marks. Alive now, filling the space I'd stepped into. She nodded once, stopping at the corral fence. Foreman said you'd been holding it down. Voice low, rough from disuse or the drive, carrying over the wind. No question in it, just fact. I nodded back, throat tight. Trying to. Words came out even, but my eyes dropped to her hands. The good one rested on the rail, calluses thick across the palm, nails short and dirt crescented. Like mine now, building. But hers deeper, etched from years. Desire sharpened then, quick as a barb snagging cloth. I fought it, shifting my weight, focusing on the horses behind her. They nickered, soft, sensing her. Cora pushed off the fence, limping toward the barn. Show me what you fixed. Not a request. I followed, boots matching her uneven pace. The yard stretched between us, stars pricking higher. Inside the barn, lantern light flickered from the hook I'd hung earlier. Shadows danced on the walls, tools glinting where I'd left them. She moved to the stalls first, good hand trailing the gate. Horses pressed close, noses bumping her shoulder. She murmured low to the bay, the one I'd ridden, fingers scratching his neck. Presence filled the air with quiet command, no raised voice, just the way she owned the space. Air thickened, hay scent mixing with her, sweat from the truck, faint soap underneath. I hung back by the tack wall, watching her inspect the fresh bedding. Notebook helped, I said, nodding to the shelf. She glanced over, eyes steady. You read it? Sparse words, but they hung. I shrugged. Followed the sketches. Fences held. She grunted. Approval or not, hard to tell. Moved to the saddle rack, good hand lifting her own, the one I'd used. Leather creaked under her touch, smooth where I'd gripped. Our eyes met then, lingering on her calloused fingers curling the cantle. Mine itched to cover them, feel the warmth. Pull sharpened, low and insistent. I stepped back, busying with a bridle, coiling the reins tight. Fight it. This was her place, temporary for me. We shared the space like that, words few. She checked the feed bins, limping past me, close enough her sleeve brushed my arm. Heat radiated from her, body still carrying the day's warmth. Arms mending, she said, not looking up. Doc cleared light work. I nodded, hanging the bridle. Good. Ranch needs you. Truth, but it twisted. Needed her here, filling it right. Her laugh came short then, dry. Needs doing. You did fine. Glance lingered again, this time on my hands. Dirt streaked, gloves off now. Calluses fresh, but there. Desire clawed, wanting her eyes to stay, her voice to drop lower. I turned away, grabbing a brush from the bench. Fight the pull. Step closer? No, just work. She settled on a stool by the tack room door, good hand rubbing her knee, limp from the fall, maybe deeper. "Storm coming," she said, nodding to the window where clouds banked dark. Conversation sparse, gaps filled with the horses' shuffle, wind rising outside. I brushed down a mare nearby, stroke steady, but my mind raced. Her presence commanded without trying. Back straight despite the sling, eyes tracking every move. Like the land, unyielding. I caught another glance, her watching my hands on the brush. Rough, capable now from her routines. Pull tugged hard, imagining those hands on me, guiding a rein or something softer. Sharpened to an edge, the fight real. Breathe steady, keep distance. Night deepened outside, the barn growing dimmer as clouds swallowed the stars. Cora stood slow, good hand on the stool for balance. "I'll take the dawn shift tomorrow. Ease in." Words final, her space reclaiming. I nodded, throat dry. "I'll shadow." She limped past, close again, scent of her pulling me. Eyes met one last time, sharp and knowing. Desire burned now, fight raging against the step closer. Her hand brushed the doorframe, calluses scraping wood. Gone into the dark. I stayed in the barn after, brush idle in my grip. The air felt empty without her, but charged. Storm clouds gathered heavy, rumbling low like unresolved words. Wind picked up, rattling the roof. Tomorrow, sharing the work. Her rhythm, my body in it. The pull wouldn't ease. Rain came sudden that night, slamming the roof like fists on tin. I lay in the bunkhouse, sheets twisted around my legs, the drops pounding relentless. Wind howled through the cracks, rattling the window frame until it felt like the walls might give. Sleep fled, replaced by the storm's roar, mirroring the churn inside. Cora's return had stirred it all, her sharp eyes, her calloused hand on the rail. I turned, punching the pillow, but the thunder rolled deep, shaking the floorboards. No escaping it. The pull tightened, a knot low in my gut, fighting the want to cross the yard, knock on her door. Stay distant. This was temporary. Her life, not mine. Dawn broke gray, clouds hanging low and bruised. I rose stiff, muscles protesting from yesterday's ride, and pulled on my jacket. Water pooled in the yard, mud sucking at my boots as I headed to the barn. Cora was already there, limping from the tack room, good arm loaded with brushes and curry combs. Rain drizzled steady now, turning the air thick and wet. "Storm held," she said, voice cutting the patter on the roof. No greeting, just fact. I nodded, grabbing a halter from the hook. Horses shifted uneasy in their stalls, ears flat against the thunder's rumble. We worked quiet at first, leading them out one by one, but the sky darkened again, lightning cracking sharp. "Back inside," Cora grunted, nodding to the tack room. No choice. The rain hammered harder, trapping us there, door latched against the flood. The tack room was small, shelves crammed with bridles and saddle soap, lantern flickering dim on the bench. We settled on stools, backs to the wall, the space shrinking with our knees almost touching. Rain drummed the roof, thunder booming like distant hooves. Cora's good hand fiddled with a rein, coiling it slow, her sling arm resting careful. Silence stretched first, broken only by the storm's fury. Then she spoke, voice low over the thunder, words pulling me in like the wind outside. "Ranch has seen worse. That norther last winter, snow up to the rails. Lost 3 head before we dug out." Her tone even, eyes on the rain, but the stories unfolded. Tales of calving in blizzards, mending wire after flash floods, the way the land fought back but always gave if you pushed right. I listened, chin on my knee, the lantern light catching the lines on her face, etched deep from sun and wind. She shifted, boots scraping the floor, and the air thickened more. Not just rain scent, but her. Damp wool and earth, close in the tight space. "Your turn," she said, glancing up, eyes steady. "What brought you here?" I hesitated, thunder masking my swallow. "City chewed me up. Needed space." Words sparse, like hers. She nodded, sharing more than. A story of her first season, green and sore, bucked off like the fall that sidelined her now. Voice dropped lower with each rumble, the thunder punctuating her pauses. The ranch came alive in her telling. Ridges I'd ridden sketched in her words. The Wells Creek a character in the tale. I leaned in without thinking, drawn to the rhythm of it, her low timbre cutting through the roar. We moved to tend her horse then, the storm easing none. She insisted, good hand steadying the lead as we brushed him down in the corner stall, just off the tack room. Dim light filtered through the cracks, shadows playing on the walls. I took the curry comb, circling his flank, while she worked the mane with her good arm, sling tucked aside. Shoulders brushed once, then again, accidental in the narrow space, her warmth seeping through my shirt. Heat flared low, my breath catching. The horse stamped, water dripping from his coat. But I felt her more. The solid press of her beside me, scent of rain on her skin mixing with hay. Internal storm raged then, want clashing hard with the need to stay distant. Pull her closer, feel those calluses trace my arm? No. Step back, keep it work. But the brushes moved in sync, our arms syncing too, each touch electric, unspoken. Thunder cracked close, the horse shying, and Cora's hand steadied him, then mine, brief on my wrist. Rough palm, warm despite the chill. Easy, she murmured, not to the horse. Eyes met in the dim, holding too long. Desire surged, a flood matching the rain outside. I pulled away slow, focusing on the comb strokes, but the clash tore at me. Want her laugh, her stories turning to us? Or bolt before it broke me? The storm inside built, thunder echoing the thud in my chest. Stay distant, temporary. But her presence filled the stall, command quiet but iron. She laughed then, raw and real, as the horse nuzzled her pocket for treats. Sound cut through the rain, cracking my resolve like lightning on dry wood. Low, unguarded, it warmed the dim space, pulling a smile from me despite the fight. Stubborn as the land, she said, offering him a carrot nub. The laugh lingered, easing the tension slight but sharpening the want. Thunder rolled on, rain unrelenting. The storm broke at dawn, skies clearing to pale blue, leaving clearer choices in the wet light. Sunlight sliced through the clouds as we stepped into the yard, the air fresh with wet earth and pine after the storm. Mud still clung to the rails, but the sky stretched clear, blue sharp as a fresh blade. I led the bay from the corral, his hooves sucking soft in the damp. Cora followed on her mare, a sturdy chestnut she'd chosen from the string. Good hand checking the cinch with a tug. Back ridge today, she said, voice steady over the birds calling in the scrub. Need to check the slide from the rain. I nodded, swinging up into the saddle, leather creaking under my weight. Her rhythm again, but shared now. She mounted careful, sling arm tucked close, boot finding the stirrup with a practiced nudge. We rode out slow at first, horses picking through the yard's puddles, water splashing up like scattered thoughts. The ridge waded miles off, trail winding up through draws thick with wildflowers. Yellow blooms nodding in the breeze, petals bruised from the downpour. Wind picked up, gentle, carrying the tang of sage and damp rock. Cora rode beside me, her mare matching the bay's stride, bodies close enough our knees nearly brushed at each rise. She didn't talk much, eyes on the path ahead, but her presence pulled steady, like the land settling after flood. My chest tightened, the internal storm from the tack room still echoing, want clashing with distance. This ride felt like testing it, out in the open where choices couldn't hide. The trail narrowed as we climbed, path hugging the hillside, scrub brushing our legs. Wildflowers pressed in, colors vivid against the mud-slick earth. Purples and whites tangled thick, wind tugging petals free to swirl around us. Proximity forced it then. Horses single file in spots, me ahead, her breath and the mare's snort close behind. I felt her gaze on my back, steady as reins, and the pull sharpened, desire humming low like the wire we'd mend. What was this? Not just work. The shift had changed me, body learning her ways, mind filling with her shadow. I gripped the reins tighter, knuckles whitening, fighting the urge to slow, let her pull even. We crested a flat, the ridge opening wide, wind whipping stronger now. I reined in slight, turning to face her. Words tumbled out before I could stop them, voice rough over the gusts. This job, it's more than filling time. Your gloves, the notebook. Stepping into it all, changed something. She held my eyes, mare shifting under her, but she didn't look away. Wind tugged her hat rim, revealing lines creased deep from squinting into sun. Yeah? Low word, inviting more. I swallowed, the admission spilling. Felt like belonging, not temporary, to the ranch, to this. Gesture vague, but she knew. Desire cracked open then, no fight left in the words. Her face softened, sharp edges easing in the light. The trail dipped sharp after, loose rocks skittering under hooves. My bay shied at a shadow, reins jerking in my grip. Cora's hand steadied mine then, reaching across the gap, rough palm covering my knuckles on the leather. Touch electric, yet gentle. Calluses scraping light. Warmth seeping through like sun on cold ground. Time stretched, wind howling around us, but her hold grounded, steady as the ridge itself. No pull away. Just there, fingers curling slight over mine, guiding the rein calm. The bay settled, but the spark lingered, desire shifting slow, easing from fight to something softer. Hope, maybe. In that shared grip, silence fell heavy but right, words unneeded. Her eyes met mine again, holding promise amid the flowers' sway. We rode on like that, hands parting reluctant as the trail widened, but the warmth stayed. Wind carried wildflower scent, petals sticking to our shirts like quiet claims. The ridge leveled, view dropping to the plain below, fences snaking like veins, ranch small in the distance. No more narrowing, just space stretching open. My body eased in the saddle. Ache from the storm faded, replaced by certainty. This wasn't ending with her return. The shift had carved me, like her initials on the post. Belonging, real now. Back at the corral as sun arced high, horses lathered and spent, we dismounted in unison. The future stretched open like the plain, dust settling under our boots. Dust settled around our boots as we led the horses into the corral, their sides heaving from the ride. I unbuckled the girth on the bay, leather slipping free with a soft sigh. Cora did the same on her mare, good hand working quick despite the sling. We moved in quiet sync, the kind that had built over the morning's miles. No words needed, just the rhythm of care, brushing sweat from coats, checking for rubs. My fingers lingered on the bay's flank, warmth still there from the sun and effort. The ridge ride had shifted something, her hand on mine echoing in every touch now. Not fight anymore. Acceptance. Slow and sure. I headed to the bunkhouse after, the yard stretching empty under the high sun. My gear waited inside, duffel half-packed from the morning, city clothes folded neat on the bed. I should have left by now, shift ending with her return, but I paused at the door, hand on the frame, the familiar scent of the barn pulling me back. Hay and leather, mixed with rain-damp earth from the storm. It clung to my skin, to my shirt, like the place wouldn't let go. I stepped away from the bag, boots turning toward the barn again. Unpacked it all slow, shirts and jeans spilling out, but I lingered there, breathing the air deep. This wasn't just work anymore. It was home, carved in the wood and wire. Cora found me in the loft later, tossing down the last hay bale for the evening feed. Desmotes danced in the light slanting through the cracks, catching on her hat brim as she climbed the ladder one-handed. She stopped halfway, good arm braced on a rung, eyes finding mine through the rungs. Steady gaze, no rush. Gears out, I said, nodding to the open duffel below. Dust from the bale settled on my arms, itching slight. She climbed the rest, settling on a beam across from me, sling arm careful. Stay. Not a question. Offer plain, like mending a fence. Ranch needs hands, steady ones. Her eyes held promise then, sharp but warm, like the horizon after rain. No flowery words, just the truth of it. Space for me here, beside her. I sat on the bale's edge, hay pricking through my jeans, the loft creaking under our weight. Wind sighed through the boards, carrying sage from outside. City's waiting, I said, but the words fell flat, no pull behind them. She shifted, boots scraping the wood. This is waiting too. Simple. Her good hand rested on her knee, calluses catching the light, marks from years I'd only begun to earn. The offer hung, filling the quiet. Permanent spot, not just job. Her world, opening. Internal walls I'd built, against want, against change, crumbled then. Dust like the moats around us. No fight left. Just quiet certainty, settling deep. This life fit, grounded in the earth we'd both touched. We walked the fence together after, sun dipping toward the ridge, shadows stretching long across the plain. Side by side, no rush in our steps. She pointed out weak posts, voice low over the wind. Wire here's thin, needs twisting tomorrow. I nodded, marking the spot in my mind, her notebook way. We planned repairs as we went, new stakes for the sag, racing the gate I'd fixed days back. Her limp eased in the even ground, good hand gesturing to the line, mine trailing the wire. Brushes of knuckles accidental, but electric still. Warmth lingering like the day's heat. No words on it, just the work, shared. The plain opened wide ahead, cattle grazing distant, their low calls faint on the breeze. We stopped at the far corner, boots planted in the dirt, fence humming under our hands. Cora turned, eyes on mine again, promise steady. We fix it right. Us, not her alone. The certainty grew, walls gone, replaced by this. Earth underfoot, her beside me. Relationship began quiet, no grand gestures, grounded in the honest work, the planning, the shared stride. Desire settled into something real, like roots in soil. Belonging. To her. To this. Stars pricked early as we turned back, the fence line our guide. My hand found hers brief at the gate, calluses meeting, hold firm. No pull away. Just right. The sun crested the ridge next morning, warming the earth between us as we saddled up side by side. If this pull feels familiar, share your own quiet truths below. Subscribe for more stories of finding home in unexpected places.